The Mercedes SL has always been and forever will be a Mercedes-Benz icon. So when it came time for them to redesign it for the 7th generation, they needed to build it for the future. I'm Nima from MVL Leasing, and this is a 22 Mercedes SL 63 AMG Roadster. In 2015, Mercedes introduced the AMG GT, which was the first regular production car that was built by AMG only. Now, that car only came in one model or a few different trims, but it was a bona fide sports car, not a regular Mercedes that just had a huge engine shoehorned into it. So what they did with that car was to take aim at Porsche, because Porsche actually has a lot of market share when it comes to a sports car of that nature. Now that car, despite being a pretty good success, kind of cannibalized its brother, the SL. Now SL is not a car that Mercedes is going to do away with anytime soon. That would be a big mistake. So what they did with the SL 63 was kind of sort of bridge that gap. They canceled 2 models in the process of reintroducing this one. You can't get an AMG GT anymore, and you can't get an S-Class Cooper convertible anymore. This car was kind of designed to check all 3 of those boxes in addition to what makes an SL an SL. We'll start with some of the details that it shares. So this car has the same 4-liter twin-turbo V8 that you get in a Mercedes-AMG GTR, which ended production in 2020, I think. 577 horse, hot V, so it's a relatively small V8. 4 liters is pretty small, with the turbos right in the middle, right on top of the engine. This is done for compactness and also helps make it easier to make this car all-wheel drive, which is an SL first. Now, with this car, this is the SL 63 Roadster. There's a GT63 that's going to come out that has a fixed roof. There's 4 models in the pecking order when it comes to the SL. This one is second from the top. So I told you about the engine. It's got the same similar transmission. I think it's an 8-speed ZF gearbox, forged wheels, lots of carbon fiber, and lots of other trinkets to kind of help this car stand out. This car is a good example of kind of showing where Mercedes-Benz is going. You're going to notice a lot of the design language is common to a lot of Mercedes models from 22 until about now. And I think they're aging really well. We'll start here at the front end, which looks pretty aggressive. Now, the color of the car, I call it bronze. Mercedes calls it Monza Gray Magno. So it's got a matte finish straight from the factory. When you have a finish like this, it's important to protect it, because if you get a nick or something like that, there's no touching up, there's no blending or anything. You have to repaint that whole panel, and it can be very difficult to match that paint. So when this car was purchased new, the entire front end, the front bumper, the fenders and the hood and the front of the mirrors are all protected with a satin paint protection film, so as to not take away from the finish and kind of give it a little bit of continuity when you're looking at it from the side and looking at all the panels. These headlights are distinctive to the SL. They're LED, they're adaptive, they're auto leveling, they peek around corners from you, highly sophisticated. These lights actually have a lot of nice features like high beam assist. So, if there's a car coming in front of you or there's a car in front of you, it'll automatically dip your high beams lower and raise them back up when there's nobody in front of you, so as to avoid the risk of dazzling the car that's driving in front of you, either in the same direction or an opposing direction. This particular car has the AMG Stealth package. It's got the AMG Night package and Intelligent Drive. So Intelligent Drive, all the things you get in that package are things like lane keeping assist, adaptive cruise control. That Mercedes-Benz 3-pointed star in the front not only is necessary on every Mercedes, but it's actually a radar. So that is actually what determines the distance between you and the car in front of you, and is able to detect pedestrians and things of that nature. You also have a little camera that's kind of right at the top of the 3-pointed star that blends in nice and discreetly. When you get the AMG Stealth package, among other things like black trim, black window frame, black mirrors, you get a lot of what they call dark chrome trim. So on SLs or bona fide AMGs, you get the vertical slats in the grille. They're all trimmed in dark chrome, as are the badges in the back and the window trim, and the badges on the fender to let you know it's a V8 bi-turbo that's equipped with 4MATIC Plus. 4MATIC Plus is Mercedes' moniker for all-wheel drive, but if you find a car that has 4MATIC Plus, it's usually designated to performance AMG cars. So it's not just all-wheel drive, it's a performance-oriented all-wheel drive system that can vector torque and send power to the front axle, rear axle, and side to side. First for Mercedes SL, and a worthwhile performance upgrade in my opinion. The car is turbocharged, which means it generates a lot of heat. So you'll notice a lot of slats and things like that in front of here that direct air to the different heat exchangers and whatnot. Efficiency is also a big deal when it comes to Mercedes, so a lot of these slats are actually active. So in the wintertime, these slats will probably close to create a wall. This way, it helps the engine warm up quicker, which is important because if you want to get on the gas, it's important for the oil to be up to temp before you start using the car in that type of manner. When we come around to the side here, you'll notice that the car has really changed shape, and it becomes pretty obvious that they really tried to take a bite out of Porsche's pie when it comes to this car. We'll start with the wheels. These are 21-inch forged wheels. They have a machined lip. They look like center locks, but they're not. But this nice center cap that is kind of adorned with the AMG logo here can be twisted off to expose your lug bolts. The brakes are not carbon ceramic on this particular car, but they are a high-performance steel braking system where your rotor is actually connected to your rotor hat with spokes. This is done to save weight, and this is done to help dissipate heat better. This car is equipped with the yellow brake calipers, which is a small touch of color, which I think this car needs. When we come down to the side here, you'll kind of notice by the silhouette of the car that where the engine is situated in the front, it's still considered front mid. So the engine is in front of the occupants, but behind the front suspension. Any of the engine components that are actually in front or in front of the front wheels, this has to do with cooling. We're going to pop the hood for you guys so you guys can take a look at that as well. All these Mercedes, they have these nice flush door handles. This was introduced with the S-Class in 2021. So all I do is press it and the door handles expose themselves. In fact, if the car is locked and I simply walk up to it, the car senses it and the door handles open themselves. They shine a little bit of light so you can see it, and they shine a little bit of light on the puddle so you can kind of see where you're stepping. Now, the one cool thing about this car that they never had done before on an SL, aside from all-wheel drive, is all-wheel steering. And when you do all-wheel steering, you virtually alter the wheelbase of the car. The shorter the wheelbase, the better the handling. So when you have these wheels, even operating to a level of even 10 degrees can make all the difference when it comes to cornering. Now, when you're trying to throw punches with Porsche, you need to have a car that handles really well. And despite this car having a weight disadvantage versus your equivalent 911, it needs technology like this in order to, put up a valiant effort when it comes to fighting a car like that and trying to get people to walk away from that type of look and technology and kind of reassess, hey, maybe an SL might actually work for me. Now, one other thing that they changed, which is kind of hard to tell because we have this wind deflector up right here, is they changed the SL to a 2+2. Before, it was strictly a two-person vehicle in the previous 6 generations, but in this one, they added these 2 little jump seats in the back. They're about as useless as the ones that you find in 911. Maybe you'll fit a kid, a very young child, but it looks like space-wise, they're more tailored towards parcels, bags, things of that nature. Because the car is designed the way that I was describing to you, with the engine being in the front but behind the rear suspension, this kind of intrudes on cabin space, which probably makes it why the rear seats are kind of a joke, but it also gives the car a bit more of a cockpit feel. A lot of these cars are developing for not only for safety, but for sport appeal. The shoulder line of the car, the waistline of the car is relatively high, and the roof line of the car is relatively low. This is a design element that makes the car look lower and hence more sporty. So now that we make our way to the back, I want to point out some cool details here. One is this motorized spoiler. This is just for downforce. You have manual control over it, or it can operate itself depending on what speed you exceed. The cool thing is that when it tucks away, it goes nice and flush with the bodywork. Even when it goes down, you still are utilizing one third brake light. So when it's up, this thing goes up enough that this is exposed. When it's in the down position, it's perfectly flush and exposes this, so there's no need for 2 third brake lights like you have on most 911s. The exhaust finisher is the same as your badges, which is a nice dark chrome, and same with the 3-pointed star on the back. It really complements this stuff. Adds a little bit of shine, because I think the satin look is really good, but I never want to do away with it completely, and the badges are a really nice trinket to kind of do that. Gloss black rear diffuser. AMGs, for the longest time, when you get an AMG, you have 4 big exhaust pipes, and these ones are kind of rectangular in shape, and on both sides engraved with the AMG logo. Another really nice touch. The lights are all fully LED, and with the new SL, they've kind of elongated these lights and helped them wrap around onto the side of the car and meet closer to the middle of the rear end. This is another design element that kind of helps the car seem a lot lower than it actually is. The car is low, it's a sports car, right? But these are design elements that kind of help accentuate that, and I think they've done a really good job. So now that we're on the inside of the car, you kind of get what I'm talking about when I'm telling you about the whole cockpit feel. The front dash, usually the glove box is almost in line with the vents and where your airbag would be deployed, but that stuff is actually on top and kind of hangs over. It's really nice, gives you more of that cockpit feel. I think it's a really nice touch. A lot of the dark chrome elements that I was talking about to you on the outside are carried on the inside. So on the side of your center console here, it's in dark chrome, so are the portion of the door that you would grab to pull to close these doors. When you hop in, you see these illuminated stainless steel AMG door sills. That's always a nice touch. It's nice to be invited by that every time I open the car to remind me what trim level I'm driving. This car has the latest in Mercedes-Benz interior tech. So part of that is your tablet style center console. One big problem with this car that a lot of people have said, and I agree with this, is that there's no physical buttons. There's a couple, but there's not a lot. Even if I want to turn the volume down, I have to use this touch sensitive stuff in order to do that. And there's a learning curve when it comes to that. And there's nothing quite like that volume knob. So it takes a bit of getting used to. It's got haptic feedback and whatnot. It's kind of points towards the future, but something that, like I said, has a learning curve and people will probably dislike it at first. But once you get used to it, you'll make it work for you. The steering wheel is an upgrade. This is the AMG Sport steering wheel, so it's a mix between leather, aluminum, and Alcantara. Alcantara on the side grips, normally when you're close to the paddles, right where they should be. A lot of controls on the steering wheel, and we're going to go into the details of a couple of those things in a bit, especially the AMG drive unit controls. Before, when you have to search over, not that you have to search, but you kind of got to press a sport button and deactivate this and do all that stuff is on your steering wheel now. So this helps you kind of adjust the personality of the car when you're on the fly, which is good. And if there's one thing this car is good at, it's having like a split personality. So if you want to be like a classic SL and be comfortable, it can do that. But when you want to turn it into animal mode, it's just a flick of a button and the car just comes to life. The exhaust changes note. The suspension gets firmer. The gear changes alter. The amount of engine sound that's allowed into the cabin changes. These are a couple of the things that change, but ones that you'll probably notice the most. The vents here kind of look like a turbine. This is similar to the wheels that you saw on the older SLR McLarens that Mercedes made in 2005 until 2010. Really nice touch, and they're made of plastic, but they look really high quality, and I just love the look. Anything that looks like a turbine that reminds me of a jet kind of gets me excited. The controls for the seats are all on the door, which is nice because now I'm not playing a guessing game trying to find the buttons on the side of the seat to make any of these adjustments. All of these are touch sensitive. They have a little bit of haptic feedback, but not really. Even the buttons for programming your seats, activating your ventilated seats, and activating what Mercedes-Benz calls the air scarf, these buttons are all touch sensitive. So on other cars, they used to be physical buttons. They're all touch now, and they all light up when the car fires up. In your center console here, beneath your tablet, you have a part where you can tuck your phone in for wireless charging. You also have 2 charging ports that help charge your phone extra fast. Gotta have 2 cup holders for my Starbucks. And this whole tablet is pretty intuitive. So it's extremely high resolution, and it's got a number of important features. One is the fact that when your roof is down, this actually tilts forward. It tilts forward to reduce the glare from the sun on the outside, which is important when you have a tablet like this that you need to control everything, including radio, navigation, climate control, and things like that. The one downside to this, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree, especially those of you who own Teslas, is that when you have all this touch stuff, all you see is fingerprints on this. And then when you put the top down and the sun comes in here, it's just a reminder of all that. When you have those plastic buttons, you just don't have to deal with anything like this. So I get that it's kind of cool, and this is where we're going, and it all started with Apple and the interface that they introduced that everybody loved because it's interactive with the pinching and the this and the that. It's nice, but there's some of these things that are just going to bother you, and I'm not going to be keeping a cloth here to wipe this down every time I use the car. Looks great when it's being used. When it's not being used, looks disgusting. Being an SL63, it's going to have a lot of standard features that are nice. Some that are tailored towards luxury and some that are tailored towards performance. Performance-wise, you get these nice bolstered seats. So they're bucket seats. You slump down into them really nice, and they're heavily bolstered, so it kind of hugs you when you're taking corners like this. Luxury-wise, it's standard Burmester sound system. So the Burmester sound system doesn't only sound good, but also looks good, because when you look at these speaker grills, they look like really nice pieces of brushed aluminum. A lot of attention to detail there. There's 2 tweeters on the dash, center speaker, 2 speakers in each door. Plus, I think that there's 2 speakers in the back, and I believe there's subs beneath the seat. So there's one thing Mercedes-Benz doesn't screw around with, it's the sound system. And with this car, they definitely didn't disappoint when it comes to that. If I can complain about one more thing when it comes to this car, is the engine stop start button. It's kind of on the dash behind this tablet here, but in between your steering wheel and the left side of the tablet. So the first couple times that I got into the car, and again, it's probably just a learning curve thing, I kind of got to search for it and stuff like that, and it's kind of difficult to touch and to reach. But once you know where it is, it gets easier after that. But it seems kind of tucked away in there. It doesn't really seem easy to find, and I think it's a pretty important button and something that should be front and center, that kind of demands a bit more attention, especially when you're talking about a car that's kissing 600 horsepower. So I'm just gonna fire the car up so I can show you guys some of the trinkets, some of the tech. You have a fully digital instrument cluster, so you can alter the information that you see on your instrument cluster depending on what drive mode you're in. Those drive mode buttons that I was describing to you on the steering wheel is actually something I really like, because they got little screens that are built into them. So the easiest one to kind of screw around with is this one. So you can switch between C for comfort, S for sport. You're kind of reminded what's going on here, and it tells you what's adjusted. When I go to Sport Plus, you hear the exhaust open up. And then there's a mode for checkered flag, which kind of means all hands on deck, all power, most potent. It's actually really nice. Now this one here helps me kind of adjust with these things individually, mainly switching between manual gear changing and automatic gear changing. And this button at the back here helps me have control over where I want the spoiler to do, whether I want to deploy it even at low speeds or just leave it up to the car to deploy when it reaches a certain speed. This is your navigation system. It works just like an iPad. A lot of this interface is going to be very familiar to you. Down here, you can switch through your different drive modes. If you press the AMG button, this activates your parking camera. It kind of stitches together the image on your front camera, rear camera, and side mirrors to kind of give you a better idea of your surroundings. It's actually a really nice touch. This button here was going to activate the roof, which we'll show you in a bit. This is your hazard light, and this is actually a fingerprint scanner. So you can actually get into the car and start it, but you won't be able to access anything in here. It'll limit the performance unless you pass the fingerprint test. This will shut down the screen, and if I press this button here, you can see how the angle of the screen can kind of change. Looks really expensive. I hope no one breaks this. This is the volume. It's pretty good. It's not like some of the old Cadillac Q system stuff where you're kind of pressing and you're not really getting any feedback or anything. It's pretty sensitive. You'll get used to it. Now, since there's no selector lever down here, that's what opened up the space down here for your cup holders. You have a little wrist rest right here that you can use to rest your arm while you're dicking around with anything that's on your screen here. You can alter the information that shows on your head-up display. If you're in a performance mode, it gives you more performance-oriented information. It kind of reminds you to keep your hand on the steering wheel. If you have the intelligent drive features activated, it tells you your speed. It tells you the speed limit of the street that you're on. One really neat feature that I like about this car is, let's say you're driving somewhere downtown Toronto, and let's say you smack a pothole and it's bad, okay? The car will remember where that pothole is, and when you go, and let's pretend you take that same route again, maybe 100 or so meters, depending on what speed you're going, it'll remind you, pothole ahead. So it's actually pretty good, does a lot of the work for you, and it doesn't make you feel like you're driving in an obstacle course like you're driving downtown Toronto. Because you don't want to bend those forged wheels. They're difficult to fix and even more expensive to replace. So that sort of tech is kind of really helpful. When it comes to this car, guys, I've hardly scratched the surface when it comes to the details to make this car special. But the most important thing I'd like to know from you guys is, do you guys think that with all the advancement that they've made with this car, is it a worthwhile competitor for Porsche? And is it enough to steal some of their customers? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.